When hope finds the wrong address, the crystalline spires of Zephiria's capital city shattered under another barrage of plasma fire. Dr. Leanna Voss pressed her translucent hand against the quantum transmitter's control panel, her crystalline form resonating with desperate energy. Through the laboratory's transparent walls, she watched another section of her beautiful homeworld burn. "Please work," she whispered, her voice creating harmonic tones that would have been music in peaceful times. The Zephirians had never known war before the Krex Empire arrived 6 cycles ago. Their entire civilization had been built on harmony, scientific advancement, and the cultivation of the rare quantum crystals that grew throughout their world. The Krex had come for those crystals. They always did. Another explosion shook the building. Leanna's fellow scientists had already evacuated, but she had stayed behind for this one desperate attempt. The quantum transmitter was their most advanced piece of technology, capable of sending messages across vast distances instantly. If she could reach the Etherian Alliance, their peaceful neighbors might send help before it was too late. Her fingers danced across the crystalline interface, encoding the message with trembling precision. The transmission would need to be perfect to reach Etherian space, hundreds of light years away. She input their coordinates, the nature of their crisis, and a desperate plea for assistance. "Message encoded," she said to the empty laboratory. "Beginning quantum transmission to Etherian Alliance Command." Above Zephyria, General Thane Kruger stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Decimator. The massive Krex warship hung in orbit, like a metal predator, its hull scarred from countless conquests. Kruger's reptilian features twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. "Report," he growled to his subordinate. "The capital's defenses have fallen, General. Resistance is minimal. The Zephirians are as weak as our intelligence suggested." Kruger nodded. It was always the same with these peaceful species. They created beautiful things, advanced technologies, prosperous worlds, and then they fell easily to those strong enough to take what they wanted. The Krex had conquered dozens of worlds this way. The crystalline beings below would be no different. "Continue the bombardment," he ordered. "But preserve the crystal harvesting facilities. We need those intact." What Kruger didn't know was that at the moment, Dr. Leanna activated her quantum transmitter. A massive solar flare erupted from Zephiria's star. The burst of radiation hit the quantum signal just as it entered subspace, scrambling its destination protocols and sending it careening through space in an entirely different direction. Captain Marcus Chen was reviewing patrol reports in his ready room when the emergency klaxon sounded throughout the UES Valiant. The human starship was on routine patrol at the edge of United Earth space, part of humanity's expanding exploration fleet. At 38, Chen had commanded the Valiant for 3 years, leading her crew of 800 on missions of exploration and diplomacy. "Captain, to the bridge," came the voice of his first officer over the intercom. Chen arrived to find his bridge crew in controlled chaos. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Reeves, his tactical officer, looked up from her console with confusion. "Captain, we've received some kind of transmission. It's not from any human colony or Earth fleet vessel. The signal is using quantum entanglement technology we've never seen before." Chen moved to the central command chair. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 30 years ago and had encountered exactly 2 alien species in that time, both peaceful traders who had welcomed Earth into what they called the Galactic community. But those species used conventional subspace communication. "Can you decode it?" Chen asked. Communications Specialist Torres looked up from her station. "Partially, sir. It appears to be a distress call. I'm getting coordinates to a star system about 57 light-years from here. The transmission is heavily corrupted, but I can make out what seems to be universal distress codes." On screen, the main view screen flickered to life, showing a 3-dimensional star map with a blinking red indicator. Chen studied the coordinates carefully. They were far outside explored human space in a region their long-range probes had classified as inhabited, but unvisited. "Sir," Torres continued, "there's something else. The transmission contains what appears to be visual data." The screen changed to show a grainy, static-filled image of what was clearly an alien being. The creature appeared humanoid but was composed of what looked like living crystal. with translucent skin that refracted light in beautiful patterns. Behind the being, explosions and destruction were visible. "My God," whispered Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the ship's chief medical officer. "That's definitely not human." Chen made his decision quickly. In the 3 decades since humanity had achieved interstellar flight, Earth Fleet had established one unbreakable rule. All distress calls would be answered, regardless of their origin. It was a principle born from humanity's own difficult history and their determination to be better than their past. Set course for those coordinates maximum warp. All department heads to the briefing room in 1 hour, and send a message to Fleet. "Command, we're investigating a non-human distress signal. As the Valiant changed course and accelerated toward the unknown, none of its crew realized they were about to make first contact with a species that had never encountered anything like humanity before." The journey to the Zephyria system took 18 hours at maximum warp. During that time, Chen and his crew prepared for every possibility they could imagine. Dr. Rodriguez worked with the xenobiology team to theorize about the crystalline beings they'd seen in the transmission. Chief Engineer Morrison ensured all systems were operating at peak efficiency. Lieutenant Commander Reeves prepared tactical scenarios, though she hoped they wouldn't be needed. "Dropping out of warp in 30 seconds, announced the helmsman. "All stations report ready, Captain," Reeves confirmed. "Take us in cautiously," Chen ordered. "Shields up, but weapons powered down. We're here to help, not fight." The Valiant dropped into normal space at the edge of the Zephyria system. Immediately, their sensors began picking up dozens of signals, some from what appeared to be fleeing civilian ships, others from massive military vessels. "Captain," Torres called out, "I'm detecting multiple ship types. Some appear to be the same species that sent the distress call. Others are different, larger, more heavily armed." "Analysis, Mr. Reeves?" Reeves studied her tactical display grimly. "Sir, it looks like we've arrived in the middle of a battle. The larger ships appear to be attacking the smaller ones. The smaller vessels match the configuration of the species from the distress call." Chen nodded. The situation was clear enough. One species was attacking another, and the victims had called for help. The details could be sorted out later. "Open a channel to the attacking vessels," Chen ordered. After a moment, Torres nodded. "Channel open, sir. This is Captain Marcus Chen of the United Earthship Valiant. You are ordered to cease your attack on the civilian vessels immediately." The response came quickly, and it wasn't what they expected. The main screen filled with the image of a reptilian alien with scarred features and predatory eyes. When it spoke, its voice was a harsh growl that the universal translator struggled to process. "I am General Thane Kruger of the Krex Empire. You will leave this system immediately, alien. These are our lawful conquests." Chen kept his expression neutral. "General, we received a distress call from this system. We're here to provide humanitarian assistance." Kruger's laugh was like grinding metal. "Humanitarian? You look as weak as the crystal creatures we're harvesting. Your single ship against my fleet? Leave now or be destroyed with them." Before Chen could respond, another transmission came through on a different frequency. This one showed the same crystalline being they'd seen in the original distress call, though now she was aboard what appeared to be a damaged spacecraft. "Please," the being said, her voice creating harmonious tones even through the stress. "I am Dr. Liana Voss of the Zephyrian Research Council. Are you the Etherians? We sent our plea to the Alliance, but your ship design is unlike anything in our databases." Chen realized that the distress call had been meant for someone else entirely. Somehow it had found its way to humanity instead. But that didn't change their obligation to help. "Dr. Voss, this is Captain Chen of the United Earthship Valiant. We received your distress transmission. We're here to assist." Liana's crystalline features showed confusion. "United Earth? I don't understand. What species are you?" "We're human," Chen replied simply. "And right now, that's all that matters. How many of your people need evacuation?" "Over 2 million in the remaining cities," Liana replied, her voice breaking. "But Captain, you have only one ship. The Krex have an entire battle fleet. They've been conquering worlds for centuries. No one has ever successfully resisted them. Chen turned to Reeves. How many Krex vessels? 17, sir. All heavily armed. We're outnumbered 17 to 1. A grim smile crossed Chen's face. Those weren't impossible odds for a human crew. Humanity had faced worse and survived. Earth's violent history had forged them into something the galaxy hadn't seen before. A species that got stronger when cornered, more determined when outnumbered. Oh, Dr. Voss, Chen said, turning back to the screen. Prepare your people for evacuation. We're going to get you out of there. But Captain, Liana protested, it's impossible. The Krex have never fought humans before, Chen interrupted. Trust me, Doctor. Help is on the way. As the transmission ended, Chen turned to his crew. Around the bridge, he saw the same determination in their eyes that had carried humanity through its darkest hours. They were about to face an enemy that had conquered dozens of worlds, with odds that any sane species would consider suicidal. But they weren't any species, they were human. Battle stations, Chen ordered. All hands prepare for combat. We're going to show these Krex what happens when they pick on someone our size. When Deathworlders answer the call, the UES Valiant accelerated toward the Krex fleet with a speed that surprised both the reptilian conquerors and the desperate Zephyrians. Captain Chen stood at the center of his bridge, studying the tactical display with the calm focus that had made him one of Earth Fleet's youngest captains. 17 ships, he said to Lieutenant Commander Reeves. What's our assessment? Reeves manipulated her console, breaking down the enemy fleet composition. 12 heavy cruisers, 4 dreadnoughts, and 1 command ship. That's where their General Kruger is located. Sir, their individual vessels outgun us significantly. But, Chen asked, knowing his tactical officer well enough to hear the unspoken continuation. But their formation is designed for overwhelming weaker opponents, not for fighting an equal adversary. They're spread out to maximize fear and intimidation. If we can exploit their positioning. Chen nodded. Humanity's military doctrine had been forged in the crucible of Earth's violent history. They had learned to fight smarter, faster, and with more determination than anyone expected. The Krex, for all their conquests, had apparently never faced an enemy that could match their aggression. Dr. Rodriguez, Chen called to his chief medical officer. What's your analysis of our new allies? Rodriguez consulted her xenobiological readings. The Zephyrians appear to be silicon-based life forms with crystalline structures. They're physically fragile compared to humans. Lower bone density, reduced muscle mass. Their entire evolutionary path seems to have favored intelligence and cooperation over physical strength. And the Krex? Reptilian, heavily muscled with what appears to be natural armor plating. They're physically impressive, but, sir, Rodriguez paused, checking her readings again. Their bone density and muscle structure suggest they evolved on a world with significantly lower gravity than Earth. They may be strong by galactic standards, but not by human ones. Chen absorbed this information. It confirmed what he'd suspected from their first communication. The Krex had become galactic bullies by preying on species that had never developed the capacity for serious warfare. They were about to learn the difference between conquering the peaceful and fighting the desperate. Open a channel to Dr. Voss, Chen ordered. The Zephyrian scientist appeared on screen, her crystalline form now aboard what appeared to be a crowded refugee ship. Behind her, Chen could see dozens of other Zephyrians, their translucent features flickering with what he was beginning to recognize as fear patterns. Captain Chen, Liana said, we've managed to evacuate the primary research facility, but there are still over 1 million civilians in the capital city. The Krex have it surrounded. Understood. We're going to create a corridor for more evacuation ships. Can your people organize rescue shuttles? We have some transport vessels, but they're not armed. If the Krex intercept them. They won't, Chen said with quiet confidence. We'll make sure of that. On the Krex command ship, General Kruger watched the approaching human vessel with growing irritation. The single ship had made no attempt to flee despite being outnumbered. Either these humans were incredibly stupid, or there was something his intelligence reports had missed. War Captain Grex, he growled to his subordinate. What do our sensors tell us about this vessel? Grex, a scarred veteran of dozens of conquests, consulted his readings. The ship is smaller than our cruisers but appears heavily armed for its size. Its energy signature is unusual, General, more compact than typical designs. One ship, Kruger repeated. Against 17. These humans must be even more foolish than the crystal creatures. But as the Valiant approached, something began to trouble the Krex general. The human ship's movement patterns were unlike anything he'd encountered. Most species, when faced with overwhelming odds, either fled immediately or approached with defensive formations. The humans were doing neither. Instead, the Valiant was accelerating directly toward the center of the Krex fleet. General, Grex said uncertainly, should we? His words were cut off as the human ship suddenly changed direction, its engines flaring with impossible brightness. The Valiant spun in what should have been a catastrophic maneuver, its hull screaming, through space in a pattern that would have torn apart most vessels, but it held together. What are they doing? Kruger demanded. On the Valiant's bridge, Chen calmly issued orders as his ship performed maneuvers that pushed both vessel and crew to their limits. Engine room, I need everything you've got. Navigation, prepare for pattern, Chen 7. Chief Petty Officer Morrison's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain, we've never tested these maneuvers at combat speeds. Then we'll test them now, Chen replied. Around the bridge, his crew worked with the precision that came from months of drilling and years of experience. They were pushing their ship beyond its design specifications, but that was what humans did. They found ways to exceed limitations when survival was at stake. The Valiant suddenly decelerated, its engines reversing thrust in a way that should have been impossible. The maneuver brought it to a relative stop directly between two Krex cruisers, close enough that their weapons couldn't target the human ship without risking hitting each other. Fire, Chen ordered quietly. The Valiant's weapons, concentrated, for maximum effect, struck both Krex vessels simultaneously. The human ship's guns had been designed with Earth's military philosophy in mind. Hit hard, hit fast, and keep moving. Both enemy cruisers staggered under the assault, their shields failing and hull breaches venting atmosphere. Before the Krex could react, the Valiant was moving again, its impossible maneuvers carrying it through their formation like a fish swimming through a net. Impossible, Kruger breathed, watching his tactical display. How are they moving like that? What the Krex general didn't understand was that the Valiant had been built on Earth, a high-gravity world where storms could level cities, tectonic activity could reshape continents, and survival required constant adaptation to hostile conditions. Every system on the ship had been over-engineered to handle stresses that would destroy vessels from more peaceful worlds. And her crew had been forged in the same crucible. Lieutenant Commander Reeves targeted the next Krex vessel with the focus of a predator. Target their engine sections. If we can disable their maneuvering thrusters, they're sitting ducks. The Valiant's next attack crippled another Krex cruiser, leaving it spinning helplessly in space. But the enemy was beginning to adapt, their remaining ships closing formation to trap the human vessel. Captain, Reeves reported, they're boxing us in. Chen studied the tactical display. The Krex were trying to use their numbers to overwhelm the Valiant through concentrated fire. It was a sound strategy against any normal opponent. Prepare boarding pods, Chen ordered. The bridge fell silent for a moment. Boarding actions were considered desperate measures attempted only when conventional tactics had failed. But Chen knew something the Krex didn't. Sometimes the best way through an obstacle was to go straight through it. Sir, Reeves said carefully, boarding 17 ships with our Marine complement. We're not boarding 17 ships, Chen interrupted. We're boarding one, their command vessel. Cut off the head, and the body dies. In the Valiant's Marine Bay, Lieutenant Sarah Reeves, the tactical officer's sister and the ship's Marine commander, was already preparing her teams. 43 Marines, the ship's entire complement, were checking their equipment and reviewing the hastily assembled intelligence on Krex ship layouts. Listen up, Sarah called to her troops, her voice carrying the authority earned through years of service. We're going up against an enemy that's used to easy victories. They've never faced human Marines before. Let's show them why Earth breeds warriors. The boarding pods launched during the Valiant's next attack run, their armored hulls disguised among the missile barrage. As the Kreks focused on the primary threat, 43 humans in powered armor flew undetected toward their command ship. The pods struck the Decimator's hull like meteors, their cutting charges boring through armor that had withstood the weapons of dozens of conquered species. But it hadn't been designed to resist the focused determination of human military engineering. The first Krek soldiers to encounter the human Marines learned the hard way why Earth was classified as a death world by the Galactic community. The reptilian warriors were strong and well-armed, but they had evolved on a world where survival was easier than on Earth. They had never faced opponents who could match their strength and exceed their ruthlessness. Sarah Reeves moved through the Krek ship like a force of nature, her powered armor absorbing hits that would have killed unprotected humans, while her weapons carved through enemy formations. Behind her, her Marines advanced with the tactical precision that Earth's brutal history had taught them. The Kreks fought bravely, but they were unprepared for the sheer ferocity of humans defending the innocent. Every Marine carried the weight of their species' violent past, the wars, the struggles, the countless times they had been forced to fight for survival against impossible odds. And they carried something else, the determination to be better than their history suggested they should be. On the Decimator's bridge, General Kruger watched his security monitors in growing disbelief. The human boarding party was cutting through his crew like they were untrained civilians. These weren't just warriors. They were something he had never encountered before. "How many of them are there?" he demanded. "Sensors indicate 43. Hostiles, General," Grex replied, his voice shaking. "But they fight like—" His words were cut off as the bridge doors exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris, Sarah Reeves stepped onto the command deck, her armor scarred but intact. Behind her, a dozen Marines spread out in a formation that spoke of countless hours of training. "General Kruger," Sarah said, her voice amplified by her suit's speakers. "I'm Lieutenant Sarah Reeves of the United Earth Marine Corps. You're going to order your fleet to stand down." Kruger drew his ceremonial weapon, a massive blade designed for a Krek's warrior's strength. "You dare board my ship, human? I'll feast on your bones." He lunged forward with speed that would have surprised most galactic species. But Sarah had been born and raised on a world where quick reflexes meant the difference between life and death. She sidestepped the attack easily and struck back with measured force. The Krek's general, despite his impressive size and natural armor, found himself on the deck with a human boot on his chest. Around the bridge, his remaining crew faced the barrels of human weapons wielded by soldiers who had never learned to give up. "Your fleet, General," Sarah repeated calmly. "Stand them down." In space, the remaining Krek's vessels had stopped their attack on the Valiant as news of their commander's capture spread through their ranks. Captain Chen opened a channel to the enemy fleet. "This is Captain Chen. Your general is our prisoner, and your command ship is under our control. You have two choices: withdraw from this system immediately or join him in captivity." The response came quickly. Without their leader and facing an enemy they didn't understand, the Kreks chose discretion over valor. One by one, their ships jumped to hyperspace, abandoning the conquest they had thought would be easy. Dr. Liana Voss watched from her refugee ship as the impossible happened. The Krek's fleet, which had terrorized her people for months, simply disappeared into the void. The single human vessel that had answered their misdirected call floated victorious among the debris. "How?" she whispered to herself. Captain Chen's voice came over the communication channel, warm and reassuring. "Dr. Voss, the immediate threat has been neutralized. Let's get your people to safety." Over the next several hours, the Valiant coordinated a massive evacuation effort. The ship's shuttles worked alongside Zephyrian transports to move civilians from the surface to safety. Dr. Rodriguez set up field hospitals for the wounded, while Chief Morrison's engineering teams helped repair damaged Zephyrian vessels. The rescue operations continued. Liana found herself aboard the Valiant, working alongside Captain Chen to coordinate the effort. She couldn't stop staring at the humans around her. They seemed so similar to her own people in some ways, yet so fundamentally different in others. "Your species," she said to Chen as they reviewed evacuation reports. "You're unlike anything in our databases." "The galactic community knows of no race called human," Chen smiled. "We're relatively new to interstellar travel. We achieved faster-than-light flight only 30 years ago." 30 years? Liana's crystalline features flickered with astonishment. "But you fight with the skill of a species that has been at war for millennia." Chen's expression grew somber. "In a way, we have been. Our world taught us that the strong must protect the weak, because we were all weak once. We learned to fight not because we loved violence, but because we loved peace enough to defend it." As the evacuation neared completion, Liana realized that her people's distress call reaching the wrong species had been the best mistake they could have made. The Etherian alliance, while peaceful and well-meaning, would have sent diplomats and negotiators. They would have tried to find a peaceful solution while the Kreks continued their slaughter, but humanity had sent warriors who fought for peace. The last transport lifted off from Zephiria's surface as the system's star set behind the crystalline mountains. Over 2 million Zephirian civilians had been evacuated to safety, their entire civilization preserved by the intervention of a species they had never heard of. "Captain," Liana said, as they prepared to depart, "why did you help us? You could have ignored our transmission. We're strangers to you." Chen looked out at the stars, thinking of Earth and the long journey that had brought humanity to this moment. "Because someone needed help, and we were able to provide it. It's what we do." As the Valiant and the Zephirian refugee fleet prepared to jump to safer systems, neither species fully understood what they had begun. First contact between humans and the broader galactic community had been made not through careful diplomacy, but through desperate necessity. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth had produced something unprecedented, a species that had evolved the capacity for devastating warfare but chose to use it in defense of others. The humans had arrived, and they had come not as conquerors but as protectors. And for species like the Zephirians, who had spent generations believing that the strong would always prey upon the weak, this revelation would change everything. The stars stretched ahead, full of possibilities and new alliances as humanity began to take its place as the galaxy's unexpected guardians. In the depths of space, General Kruger sat in his cell aboard the Valiant, finally understanding what he had encountered. The humans weren't just another species to be conquered. They were the evolution of warfare itself, tempered by compassion and guided by an unbreakable moral code. The Kreks Empire would think twice before attacking peaceful worlds again. Word would spread through the galaxy about the mysterious humans who answered distress calls and fought impossible odds to protect the innocent. And in the quiet moments between the stars, Captain Chen smiled, knowing that humanity had passed its first test as members of the galactic community. They had shown the universe not just what they could destroy, but what they would die to protect. The transmission had been sent to the wrong species, but for the Zephirians and for the galaxy itself, it had been exactly the right mistake.